Welcome. Happy Saturday. Today we will be talking about reforms in the criminal justice system, specifically racism. Okay, let's get started. The criminal justice reforms in the United States is about trying to fix errors one thinks is currently happening in the criminal justice system. What many people do not realize is the amount of racial bias and racism there is in the current criminal justice system. Therefore, the current reform that I feel is the highest importance right now is to change the racism towards African Americans in the criminal justice system. The reason this is such a problem is due to the number of African Americans who are related to the criminal justice system in any way is a very large number. Quote, as of 2010, 60% of the wrongful convictions identified by the Innocent Project have involved a black defendant. Quote, Cutler, 2012. This percentage is higher than any other race of people who have ever been wrongfully convicted. The problem is, why? Why is there such a large number of African Americans being sentenced to crimes that they did not commit compared to other races? This reform would be to change these statistics, also to change the way that African Americans are viewed by others, mainly in the criminal justice system. In a research study done by Edbert Hart et al. 2006, researchers focused on a perceived stereotypes of black defendants and how that could predict the capital sentencing outcomes. This study emphasized the injustice and racism towards African American men. In this study, in this day and age, everyone knows that race matters. As much as we try not to be stereotypical or racist, it still matters, especially in relation to capital punishment. Quote, in current research, we use the data set from the study by Badals and his colleagues, 1998, to investigate whether the probability of receiving the death penalty is significantly influenced by the degree to which the defendant is perceived to have stereotypically black appearances. Examples, broad nose, thick lips, and dark skin. End quote. Edbert Hart et al. 2006. The outcome of their study revealed that those defendants who were perceived to be more stereotypically black were more likely to receive a death sentence than those who did not seem to be more stereotypical. There are a lot of racial biases in certain cases, mainly those with African defendants. There's also the concept of cross-race bias. Cross-race bias can be described as eyewitness identification indicates the potential for race to contribute to wrongful convictions. Cutler, 2012. When someone does reform, one also has to think about all of the possible problems that could occur from suggesting this reform. When thinking of this specific reform relating to African Americans and racism in the criminal justice system, one can think of multiple problems that could arise. Here, to talk about a few, one problem that we can think about is how can we change the mind of others? Racism is not something that you can physically change from somebody. As a mindset, it is something that people feel towards other people. Racism is not, as I stated, not something we can physically change compared to a double-blind procedure, which is related to eyewitness statements. That is something that we can physically stop and try to change. You could tell the police officers, you will not know the victim or who the possible perpetrator is when talking to the eyewitness so that your bias does not affect the eyewitness statements. Another problem that could arise with suggesting this specific reform is the hesitation in their work and not wanting to double check their actions. Them being the police officers, the lawyers, even the judge. An example being a police officer conducting an investigation would not want to be told to try and withhold any of their racial bias to or for another race, specifically African Americans. In relation to that, this could arise another problem that people do not consider themselves is that they do not consider themselves racist. Some people say, oh, I may not be racist, but unintentionally, unconsciously, they could act a certain way towards people, judge people in a certain way that could be considered racist. Many may argue that they are not racist at all and they do not have racial biases toward African Americans, creating conflict between myself with stating this reform in the criminal justice system. References: Cutler, B.L., 2012, Conviction of the Innocent, Lessons from Psychological Research, American Psychological Association, 1 DOI 10.1037-13085-000. Edward Hart, J.L., Davies, P.J., Purdue, Venos, V.J. Johnson, S.L., 2006. Looking Deathworthy, Perceived Stereotypically of Black Defendants, Predicts Capital Sentencing Outcomes, Association of Psychological Science, 17.5. Thank you. See you again soon.